Welcome to the Excel Pod. Welcome to the Untied Podcast, where we unravel the knots of life with faith, wisdom, and encouragement, because together we're here to untie from tradition and embrace truth through powerful Bible teaching. My name is Garrett and I'm one of the hosts of the show, along with my good buddy Corey Sawyers, and today we are bringing you another episode of the Untied Podcast, and this is Season 3, Episode 5. We got off to a slow start this year, but we're slow. We're now moving pretty good. So that is a very positive thing, and we're so glad that you have decided to join us in whatever way that is, whether it be on the podcast platform that you have chosen or on our YouTube page or Excel TV. You can see and view this podcast any way that you like, and we hope that you will like, share, subscribe, and follow, all those good things to help us grow this podcast as we talk about the blessed man this season in the book of Psalms. And today our psalm of choice is Psalm 30. Every time I want to say chapter, I don't know why. I guess because everything else is a chapter. So we're in Psalm 30 today, and we will be looking at the dedication of the temple, and of course looking at how that applies to us and all that's going on in David's life as usual, as we apply that blessed man theme to this episode. So we're glad that you joined us, Corey. It's good to be with you, my friend. Let's go ahead and start it off with our favorite part. Well, it's our favorite, but really the study's our favorite, so it's all good. But what's been cooking, my friend?
Well, not much. If you heard that noise in the background, I was trying to be as quiet as I could. You always start with saying, as you introduce me, my good friend, to tell people how good of friends we are. We schedule a time to start recording, and it's usually about 30 minutes after that we start recording because we're just chit-chatting. So I actually, once you said, here we go, and hit record, is when I realized that I'd sat here long enough talking, I drank my cup of coffee, so I had to pour another cup. So anyway.
Cup. Yeah, I've gotten to where I have 2 cups already here. I've got one with a lid and one without a lid. And today, for those of you watching, I have a very special cup. I don't know if this is going to actually show right, but you know, as we've said before, or talked about a little bit, my grandfather passed away about just over a month ago now, and this is the coffee mug that his sister gave him. So my great aunt. And this is what he said all the time. I'm fine. Everything's fine. So anyway.
And that frazzled cat does not look fine.
It does not look fine. Well, that's kind of how we thought he was. But anyway, so this is my special coffee mug for this episode. I think I'm just going to have a different mug every episode and maybe do something fun with that.
That'll be good. No, I made a big pot of chili last night. We finally have gotten some fall-like temperatures this week.
Yes.
That is very nice. So
we did too. It was 43 degrees this morning.
Yeah, I think it was 42 here. And I think the high, if I remember right, it's either today or tomorrow. The high is only supposed to be up to 60 today. No, today is 68. Tomorrow it's they've changed it now to 60, 65. Sunday is when it's down to 60 now. But in the scrolling of the app on the weather app on my phone, every high in that forecast, whatever it is, 10 days or whatever, the high is in the 60s. So man, I'm loving that. So yeah, I made a big pot of chili last night, and this afternoon we're recording this on a Wednesday, and I don't know if we're supposed to tell that or not, but anyway, we're recording it on a Wednesday, and we do a thing once a month we call Dinner and Devotional. Mm-hmm. Young men will do a little Devo for us, and Well, this week we're doing hamburgers and hot dogs. So this afternoon, me and 3 other brothers are going to grill, I think, about 300 hamburgers and 200 hot dogs. So that'll be what's cooking this afternoon, but
nice.
That won't be a big thing. So
nice. Yeah. Well, my wife was talking about, she's a big soup person. I've never been a big soup
I love
person,
soups.
But she said when it hits the burr months, she said she gets really excited about soups. So last night she was talking about she wants to make some potato soup, and every year for Halloween, being in a small town, Halloween's just a little bit different than in the city. But kind of where our house is, that's where a lot of the families will go, and they go around with their side by sides and 4-wheelers and trucks, and they got trailers full. It's just a big deal, and everybody's got their lights on and stuff. And so anyway, she always will make 2 pots of soup, and so she's getting excited about that. And we actually got in preparation for this. When she starts getting into this mode, she starts just getting everything ready, and gets real decorative, and it's pretty funny. But her aunt sent us a projector, and it was brand new. She had planned to use it, and just decided she wasn't going to be able to. And she said, "Hey, do you guys want this?" And we're like, "Yeah." So we pull it out. It's a really nice projector. So anyway, she found these videos on YouTube. And we have a big front glass, big front window in the front of the house. And she put the white, plastic tablecloths, like the throwaway ones. And she covered that. And then we put the projector up in the front of the house, and then have projected these different YouTube videos that'll have like pumpkins singing or whatnot. And it plays in the front of the house. So she got all that ready. And now she's full on ready to start making her soups and whatnot. So that's kind of where we are in our home right now. But so she's about to start cooking lots of soups. So
well, I love soups, and Melody knowing that I love soup. Melody makes lots of soup with cornbread. Of course, you have to have cornbread with your soup. Mm-hmm. But
sweet
anyway,
cornbread.
No, just regular cornbread.
No? Oh.
That's the Yankee in you coming out.
I guess. I don't know. I've never, to be honest, I've never really been a huge cornbread fan outside of a dish that my grandmother made. But in the last few years, I've started to like cornbread more and more. But man, I can eat some sweet cornbread.
Yeah.
It's good.
Well, we always say around here, you put your sugar in your dessert, not in your cornbread, So, I think Melody does put a pinch of sugar or something like that in it, but it's not sweet at all. Yeah. And then, so let me ask you this. In your chili, beans or no beans? I know Texas's opinion, but what about Oklahoma?
I don't, probably it's a mix, but I think probably a majority is beans.
Yeah, that's why we are here.
Yeah. Yeah. But, it's probably a toss up. So I like it in there. But you know what? I'm not a big tomato in my chili kind of guy. I like a little bit of tomato sauce, but not like the big chunks.
Yeah.
So I'm not a big fan of that. But
I use tomato paste and crushed tomatoes, so I don't have the chunks of tomatoes.
Yeah. That's what I like too.
And I like to put the canned green chilies in there. I put a bunch of them in there. Mostly just meat and beans, a little beef broth, crushed tomatoes, tomato paste. Yeah. And I put what I made last night. I put chorizo and ground beef in there. So.
Oh, really? I love chorizo.
Yeah, I do too. Mm-hmm. I love chorizo in my jalapeno poppers. So
I have not done that.
Yeah. Yeah, brown up the chorizo and let it cool, and then put it in your cream cheese and cheese mixture that you pipe into the jalapeno. Wrap it in bacon, sprinkle it with whatever rub or whatever you want to put on there, and then smoke it. But yeah, the chorizo is a nice I forget who taught me that, but it's a nice addition to the jalapeno popper.
Well, I'm gonna have to try that. That really does sound good. Although I did find another deal the other day. I'm sure you've tried it before or at least seen it, but there's a guy named I believe is Heath Riles. He's a big barbecue guy, and anyway, he butterflied chicken breast and then put inside of it, half of a jalapeno and then put all kinds of stuff in there and then wrapped it in that chicken breast, just closed it up and then wrapped it in bacon and smoked it. And he had some, I don't remember, he called them dinosaur eggs or, he had some kind of name for them, but that's another form of the popper that I would like to try out. So I'm excited to do that.
We went to a restaurant. It was a diner, drive-in, and dive that we were down in the Houston area traveling, preaching, and went to this restaurant. It was a steakhouse, actually. When we got there, I couldn't afford any of the steaks on the menu. I think I had hamburger steaks when I had that night. But anyway, but what they had done on diners, drive-ins, and dives was they called it a dinosaur egg, but it was a big jalapeno that they stuffed with the cream cheese and spices and smoked brisket. Then they wrapped a piece of bacon around it, and then they rolled it in flour and they deep fried it. And it was the size of a big giant, like ostrich egg almost when they brought it out. But you talking about larping, and it was pretty larping. But
yeah, that does sound good. That sounds really good, actually.
We used to make all the time. That's probably the number one way we would use our dove breasts when we'd go dove hunting, is make little jalapeno poppers out of them.
Yeah. Throw them in the oven for a little bit. Don't take long to cook either.
No.
Yeah. I've had them like that a lot, and they're pretty good. So, that's getting me hungry. I am also. I was talking to my uncle about this yesterday. In my Traeger, my pellet grill, I started seeing more and more of the charcoal pellets, and they have the charcoal and there's charcoal hickory mix, and there's a charcoal pecan mix, and there's, I'm sure, mesquite and whatnot. But I saw yesterday, I didn't know this till last night, that if you get the charcoal pellets, I think just the charcoal, they're waterproof. So I've been really thinking about trying those out. So I may try them out and give my very professional review on those. But apparently they're really good. There's a lot of people that are doing that and using those. So I may have to try it out and see how that works.
Yeah.
But well, it was a outside of the cooking that our families are doing. Football season is last weekend was a big weekend, and full of joyous occasions and heartbreaks.
Yeah.
So 2 weeks ago, I was down in the dumps, and unfortunately, Tennessee didn't pull it out, but. I think both of them are going to bounce back. Oklahoma bounced back. Tennessee's going to bounce back. Now, we're going to meet here in a couple weeks. So that'll be a big week for us.
I saw yesterday where they announced that they're wearing their dark mode jerseys whenever Oklahoma comes to town. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Are the helmets dark too?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, it's
cool.
solid black, and then of course the orange lettering, the orange T. And stripe on the helmet. I guess about everybody has them now almost, but it's a really good look. And it really gets them all fired up about it. So anyway, I think they're realizing that we can't afford to drop another game if we have a chance. So let's do everything we can to get fired up for Oklahoma. That's our biggest home game left. So,
well, we've got Ole Miss this weekend at home, thankfully.
Who'll be mad?
So, we'll see how that goes.
The big rivalry game.
The big rivalry. Yes. It is It is one of the biggest in college football, I think.
Evidently. The last Saturday in October.
That's traditions start in all kinds of ways, and our hatred of Ole Miss is growing, apparently, and theirs is growing of ours. So their coach has already accused our coach of cheating and said all kinds of stuff about, we picked Oklahoma, and so, we'll see what happens. It's brewing. That's how good rivalries start. When that tension really takes hold.
Yeah. Leave a fake play script, on the sideline or something like that for them. And
that's what old Mike Leach did.
Yeah. Maybe you can really spark something in that way.
That'd be awesome.
But between y'all going to Vanderbilt, going to Florida and then Vanderbilt at home at the end of the season, we could potentially end up 10-2, or we could potentially end up 7-5, or who knows?
Well, I really don't know what's going to happen with Vanderbilt. They're just not the Vanderbilt of the days of old, where they were just constantly terrible.
Yeah. You could always count on that.
You could always
we beat them at one point. I think it was like 27 years in a row we beat them.
Yeah.
Which is kind of unbelievable, because now we're going way back in the time machine. But years and years ago, Vanderbilt was pretty good. Whenever General Robert Nealon was hired as the head football coach at the University of Tennessee, the General Robert Nealon, for which now the stadium bears his name,
Yeah.
When he was hired, reportedly, he was given one directive: beat Vanderbilt, because they could not beat Vanderbilt. And of course, he turned the tide on that rivalry. But it's hard to think of a world in which you can't beat Vanderbilt, but
that is the state of college football. When did you ever think we'd be saying Vanderbilt and Georgia Tech are good?
Yeah. Well, and with the NIL and transfer portal, like if you watched any of the Vanderbilt LSU game the other day, it was amazing how many times they would say, such and such for Vanderbilt makes the sack. He was playing defensive end for Alabama last year. So-and-so makes the reception, the transfer from Ohio State, whatever. And they're not used to getting that level of, 4 and 5 star guys.
Yeah.
And so
it really changed. It has changed the game.
Yeah.
Where your good teams that have traditionally been good teams over the last 15, 20 years, probably going to remain in that area. But if those other colleges have money or the ability to get, build their NIL program, then they're going to, even in the playing field. That I can say, I think that is probably the one good thing that has come out of this, is it has in some ways leveled the playing field.
But it's also not only made the traditionally not good teams good, it's also put a hamper a little bit on some of the big. We're going to have to get used to, like, if you're Alabama, Oklahoma, Tennessee, not thinking automatically 3 losses is our low point, because the difference is those guys that are 4 and 5 star guys, if they're not playing at Alabama, Oklahoma, or Tennessee, they're going to transfer to Georgia Tech and Vanderbilt. Well, what that means for the big boys is like for us this year, you lose your 2 starting corners. Well, you don't have other 4 and 5 star guys to step up and be your starting corners, And so if you're Alabama, you lose your left tackle to injury before. Well, you've got another 4-star, 5-star tackle that you can put in there. Maybe he's a freshman or sophomore and doesn't have the experience, but he's got the physics. Now you're putting a guy in who is a 3-star guy or a walk-on who just loves Alabama, which is great, but he's not the same caliber, Right. So there's going to be a lot more of that as time goes on as well.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, it is, as it's been called many times, the Wild Wild West in college football today. And but man, I guess we've said it before, I'll say it again, this is the best time of the year when it's
the most wonderful
Here we
time.
go. I told y'all last week as we were in the episode, I got him to sing a song, and it's just going to continue.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh man. Well, it is the most wonderful time of the year where it's cooling down. It's time to start smoking some meat. In fact, I'm about to make some jerky, some deer jerky, and probably some deer chili before too long. And nice cool weather, deer season, football. It's all. And last night we watched our first NBA game with the Thunder. The boys were excited about that. So I mean, you've got baseball, football, basketball. Everything's going on right now. So it's a good time.
Yeah,
good time.
Yep.
Well, brother,
speaking of good times,
yes.
Psalm 30.
Psalm 30. That is where we are. And hopefully, if you tuned in last week, you were able to read through Psalm 30. It is not near as long as Psalm 18 was, which is what we covered last week. And I really enjoyed covering Psalm 18. And thought we worked our way through it pretty good, being a longer psalm. But this one is, only 12 verses. So nice, easy read. And, as we say, pretty much every week we try to say this as a reminder that the Psalms are not meant to just read through like you would any other book of the Bible, but it is really designed for us to read a few verses, chew on it, and kind of let that, the meditation is really what we're after with these. And so as we begin, and I'm going to go ahead and pull this up on our screen for those of you who are watching, we have Psalm 30 pulled up. And so, Corey, as we typically do, we're going to have you introduce Psalm 30, and then we will get geared up on this thing.
Well, Psalm 30, you'll notice on the title of it in the ESV, it says, a Psalm of David, a song at the dedication of the temple. I'm looking, is that New American Standard you got pulled up here?
Yes, yeah.
And it says at the dedication of the house. So that's a good way to appropriately, I think, begin all of this. Because we don't really know whether this means God's house or David's house. Either of those would fit, whether it's the palace that David made for himself, or whether it's when David wrote this. And I know David wasn't there for the dedication of the temple, but he gathered all the supplies for Solomon to build a temple. It would make sense that, by the way, I wrote a good little ditty for you to use whenever you actually get it done and you're ready to dedicate it. So, but either one of those would fit because it would reflect good times in David's life. The last couple of Psalms we've talked about have been, kind of down. There's problems, there's troubles, but as we talked about from the very beginning of our study of Psalms, the psalmists are dealing with everything, the whole spectrum of emotion, good, bad, everything in the middle. And this is one of those good times that he's dealing with. And so it is a Thanksgiving psalm more than maybe any other thing. It's a praise song, but it's a Thanksgiving song. And the way that I would break it apart is the first 5 verses are a Thanksgiving section. And then in the middle of the psalm, verses 6 through 10 is a confessional. And then the last couple of verses, 11 and 12, is another Thanksgiving section. So David is going to spend a little time thanking God for what he's done. And then you see in verse 6 the transition, as for me, and he's going to talk about, what it is that he's done and ask the Lord to be merciful to him and all of that. And then verses 11, 12, again, thank God for what he's done for him. So that's what really the whole psalm is about.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking while you were going through, saying all the different types of psalms, and we covered some of that in the first episode, Thanksgiving songs, praise psalms, so on and so forth. That you said in the first episode, if there's something going on in your life, there's a psalm for that. And that's what came to my mind as we started looking through this. And, this, and I can't remember if you said this or not, I may have missed it, but, this could go back to one of two places. 1 Kings 8 and verse 63 is one of those, or 2 Samuel chapter 5 and verse 11. This could connect back to either one of those, and I think there's two schools of thought on that. But either way, definitely a dedication. And so kind of as we did last time, and I went ahead and marked some of these just to kind of start keywording this a little bit, to kind of bring a few things out for us. For those of you who are viewing, and of course I'll say this for those of you who are listening, is again, like the other Psalms of David, there's a lot of this you or his, kind of those words that are in here. And it just starts out in verse 1, I will extol you, O Lord, for you have lifted me up and have not let my enemies rejoice over me. O Lord, my God, I cried to you for help, and you healed me. O Lord, you have brought up my soul from Sheol. You have kept me alive, that I would not go down to the pit. So there's a lot of this you going on, and that really is, again, I think, every time that David writes, there you're seeing that relationship in one aspect or another, and he's always focused on the closeness of their relationship. And for you and I think that's such a big deal, because in all times of our life, we need to really focus on that relationship. It is the most important relationship in our life. And in David's life, he had some pretty high moments and pretty low moments. And I've really, as I've said before, focused on this. For me, I'm really trying to focus on being, kind of medium, right, in my faith, just kind of constant, right in the middle, not too high, not too low. I want to be, just in one place, and I don't want to be, I don't want to fall. I don't want to trip up. I don't know when to do any of that stuff. I want to stay right in the middle where I need to be. So that's very important for me.
Yep. And, I think we oftentimes, when things are bad, we do look at God and turn toward him, sometimes asking for help, sometimes blaming him maybe even. But I think maybe it's more difficult for us sometimes to stop, and even though you think it would be just as easy, to stop and realize how we ought to thank God for the good times and praise him for the good times. So we talked about in the very first lesson about how that there's at least five different words for praise that's used predominantly throughout the Psalms. And one more kind of overview part of this, verse 1 there, I will extol you. That's the fourth most common of those praise words. Then you drop down to verse 4, sing praises is another one of those praise words. It's the fifth most commonly used. And then give thanks in the second line of verse 4, that's the third most common. Mm-hmm. And then you drop down to verse 9, and he's going to mention the third most common again in praise. We'll talk about what he's really saying there in just a minute. But then at the end of the psalm in verse 12, may sing your praise is number 5 again, and I will give thanks to you is number 3 again. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different times that in these 12 verses, there's me and there's God, and then 6 different times, 6 different ways, he says, let me pray, let me praise you, let me sing praises, let me give thanks. Mm-hmm. So again, it's about my relationship with God, and in particular in this situation, this is a good time, and it's not look at me. Let's look at God. Look at God. He's the one that deserves all of this praise, and that's why I think in the middle of this, that confessional side is there, because David is trying to say once again, hey, I'm not the one that deserves credit for all this. I'm weak, and I'm someone who is very flawed, but God is the one that deserves the credit and the praise for all of this.
Mm-hmm. Which goes right back to the idea that David is a man after God's own heart.
That's right.
The humility aspect of his life, and to know who David is in his life in that time, being king, what a better opportunity for somebody to grow in pride than that. Yeah. If you're going to be in top power, the pride aspect.
See Saul.
Yeah. So the difference between Saul and David it's night and day. It's a huge contrast when you begin to compare, the people's king, which was Saul, and God's king, which of course was David, the anointed, as we have seen several times. Well, they're both anointed, but his choice of David in life. And so for him to be in that position, to have that title, to have that, power, he had a lot of power. But whenever you read through, when we read through 2 Samuel 5, one of the things that, and let me see if I can go over here. I know that this is a possible connection point, but whenever I was kind of reading through this and preparing for it, I thought that this was really interesting, and it's not the only time that we read this. It's going to be, let me see where it's at. I think it's down at verse 19. You have the Philistines that have, let me shorten this up where it fits on our little screen here a little bit better. You have the Philistines that have shown up and they're ready to go to war with David as typically they would. And that's what we have in verse 17, when the Philistines heard they had anointed David king over Israel, all the Philistines went up to seek out David, and when David heard of it, he went down to the stronghold. So a king has an army, and a king can make the decision to go to war. He can do whatever he wants. But notice what happens. You have in verse 19, then David inquired of the Lord, saying, shall I go up against the Philistines? Will you give them into my hand? And the Lord said to David, go up, for I will certainly give the Philistines into your hand. So this is a guy who has the power to say, let's go forward, let's take him, let's go to war, let's do this thing. But he does not, I'm sure he talked to his advisors and whatnot, but here it seems like the first direction that he goes, God, what do you want me to do? What direction you want me to go? Is this, are you going to be with me in this action, which is the very opposite of what Saul would have done? So, his connection to God is just really fantastic.
Yeah, and it ties back to what he says there in those first couple of verses. I'm praising you, I'm extolling you, O Lord, for you have drawn me up. The ESV says, yours says, lifted me up. You've lifted me up. In other words, he was depressed. He was down in the dumps.
Yeah.
Well, how did he lift him up? You've not let my foes rejoice over me. Notice it's God did this.
Yeah.
It was God's victory, not mine. And then, just like you read for us there, I cried to you for help, and you have healed me, which I think is interesting in the fact that, first of all, David, as elated as I am now, I think about how depressed I was and how elated that I am now. The difference was God's hand involved in my life. But verse 2, the psalmist, in particular David, didn't separate God from the events in their daily life, and he could have taken credit for all of this himself. But I'm crying to you for help, and you healed me. Notice that God didn't spare him from the wound, but he did provide the healing that he needed. And maybe that was a literal physical ailment, or maybe it was the problem that he says in verse 1, that he was depressed and God healed the whatever. But it's all about, this is what God has done. And maybe verse 3, you brought my soul up from Sheol, which that's the grave. You restored me to life from those who go down to the pit or the grave. So, maybe it was a physical thing. Maybe it was the depression that was causing, him to be that life-threatening of circumstances. But either way, it's God that has done this. It wasn't me that did this, that had this victory. It was God that did this.
It's interesting that, we see a guy like this, the weight of the weight that has to be on his shoulders as a king has got to be pretty hefty. And so there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of, he makes decisions. So in a position like that, we would equate that, of course, to like being the president or something today. But how many people have you talked to that are in a state of mind that says, I need help and I don't know where to go? David had no qualms about where to go. He knew where to go. And I don't know what it is or why it is that sometimes we as people today can get in our heads, and I'm not exempt from this, but we get in our heads and we kind of box ourselves in, and we can make a situation feel worse than it is. I guess we could go down to chase a rabbit with that, but what David does, I think, is a great example for all of us. When you are, you have brought my soul up from Sheol. I go down into the pit. This is a low point, and he goes directly to God. If you or I or anybody listening or watching this, if you are at a low point in your life, there is no question about where you need to go. You've got to go to God. He will provide a way. He's going to be there for you. I mean, there's no getting around that. David is such a great example because his focus was on, no matter what's going on in my life, I need to make sure God's in it.
Yep.
And he'll help me get through.
Yep. And he, probably our listening audience would not expect me to be quoting Shakespeare. But the quote from King Henry is, "Uneasy lies the head that wears the crown."
Yeah.
Well, in context, in Shakespeare, King Henry is sick and he's tired and he has taken over. He's kind of weaseled his way into the throne and all of that, and he's relying on self. David had God to turn to, but even beyond that, here in Psalm 30, he's turned to God. And God has helped him. Mm-hmm. And then the step that we usually forget is then turning back to God and saying thank you, and giving him the praise and glory and honor. It's usually, I pull myself up by my bootstraps and look at what we did and what we accomplished. And he recognizes that it's God, which is why that he's able to turn his lament psalms into praise psalms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard people say, I've heard all my life, pull up your bootstraps and get to work. And I believe in that idea. I believe in that concept, right? And hard work. And, however, there was a book, I believe it was Aubrey Johnson's book. The name is escaping me. But it's about the parable of the sower. I may think of the name of it, but anyway, it's a great book. He really breaks it down, and I think it was in there. I don't know if I came to this realization or if he said it in the book. It's been a while since I've read it, but there's a lot of stuff that I have kind of in my memory bank from reading that and going through and studying with it. That if you look at a farmer works hard, and we, around us, and I'm sure around you, but we have a lot of farmers, and they spend a lot of hours in the field, and they're constantly planting and cutting and, doing all that stuff year round with different crops. So there's no doubt that there's a lot of hard work, but that is a work that is completely reliant upon the uncontrollable for them. They plant the seed. They work to plant the seed, but when the seed's in the ground, they got nothing else to do. Everything that we have in this life is a result of God. Nothing we have, even though we have worked for it, we can say that we've earned it in a way. Without God, we've got nothing. God is the one who has given us the ability to work. He's given us the ability to do stuff. And just like that seed, we can plant that seed and work to put that seed in the ground, but we are still reliant upon God. And that's the beauty of all of the different farming type of parables or stories or illustrations that we can use because, like David, there has to be for every faithful individual. I don't even want to say Christian. I want to say a faithful individual. A true faithful individual is going to be obedient, is going to walk in the direction of the Lord, is going to do everything that he says. So I want to say it like that to encompass somebody who may not be a Christian, somebody who is a Christian, kind of the whole, thing there. But every faithful individual has got to rely wholly upon God in all aspects of your life. You've worked hard. You're very successful in your business. You've worked hard. You're very successful in your family. That's great. God has given you everything to do what you have done, and he's giving you everything that you have. David completely understands that. Whether it's going to war with the Philistines, whether it's ruling over Israel and Judah, whatever that might be, God is at the heart of his heart, soul, and mind, and he knows that with God I'm everything, without God I'm nothing. And so when we have this time of lowness in our life, to go to the very foundation of all creation and the foundation of our souls is such a great thing. And that's just probably a long way to say that, David is just really a great example for these things, that whether he messes up, whether he's down, God's where he goes. Yep.
And I think the book you're talking about is The Seed Principle, which is really a book about what you said, but it's about making the right decisions.
It is, yeah.
And that's what David's doing, is he's making the decision to turn to God. He's making the decision to give thanks to God and praise to God,
Yeah.
Which is what he gets into in verse 4. So now he's saying, because I've gone through this, all right, sing praises to the Lord, O you his saints, and give thanks to his holy name. And this parallelism, singing praise and giving thanks, is the same thing. But to you his saints, to his holy name, I don't know. Let me look up here and see what you got. That's what the New American Standard says too. To
Godly
his holy
ones and holy name.
Yeah. But holy there is a noun. It's not an adjective.
Yeah.
It's translated like it's an adjective. It's describing his name. That word that's translated name, if you'll right click on it, or two finger click, depending on what you got, you can see it can be like a memorial or a remembrance or something like that.
Yeah.
If you click on the not the root, but the lemma up above that, where the circle right up above there.
Right here?
Right there? Yeah. Click on that, and then you can click down there like at any of those look it up words, and it'll show you some different definitions of it. But it's almost like it can be the memorial of his holiness, or the remembrance of his holiness, or something of that. But it's holy as a noun and name is a noun. So when you think about the Lord, why should we give thanks to him? He's going to talk about it more in verse 5, but right off the bat, it's because of his character. And we're wanting to, every time we remember how holy that he is holy. He's not, holy isn't just something that describes him. He is the embodiment of holiness, That's the reason I'm not, and he's going to get into that starting in verse 6, but he is, and that's why we give him thanks and glory.
I've got the ESV pulled up, and it is, of course, marked everything over here. I'm trying to make it bigger for the screen for those who are looking. Maybe it's, there we go.
Well,
there. Okay. So that way we can look at the same thing here. Because I've got an ESV in front of me as well too. So, all of these, his mindset is just really unbelievable. The focus of his heart, sing praise, give thanks. That is not something that's easy to do when you're down. But he seems to figure that out all the time. And, maybe a practice. John Moore did I don't remember which, in his Bible and Passage videos, and we have those on Excel TV. You can also find the World Video Bible School or Bible Passages. I want to say it's .com. It might be .org. I'll post it in the show notes. Either way, you need, whatever that is, you need to go and check that out. He's got it on there too. But there's one of the Bible and Passage videos that he does that he explores an area where David probably was. And he's walking through, and there's caves in there. And, it's from that context, it's most likely when he was hiding from Saul. And one of the things that he seems to do in his life is what he feels. He writes a song. He writes, this poetry, and he's expressing his heart in wonderful ways. And, I think that that's a super healthy thing for a person to do in life, is to find a way to get those things out and to share them. Your feelings, your thoughts, your ideas, to get them out, put them on paper, and it's almost like it becomes more real whenever you do that. So if he's in this place, oh Lord, you have brought my soul from Sheol, you've restored me to life from among those who go down to the pit. Sing praises to the Lord, O you his saints, and give thanks to his holy name. That's putting things down where they're concrete. This is a real thing. And going back to the seed principle book that we've been talking about, one of the things that Aubrey Johnson says in there that has always stuck with me is that your life is a result of every decision you've ever made. Mm-hmm. David did not get here by accident. David is where he is spiritually because he has been intentional about this relationship that he has with God. And so it's not by accident. It's not a surprise to us when we read things like this. It's mm-hmm. who David is. Mm-hmm. So maybe the question for us, the idea of being untied, right? We've got to untie from who we were out of Christ and tie on to what we should be in Christ. If people heard you talk like this, would they be surprised? Because I don't think that anybody's surprised when David would say things or even sing things like this.
Yep. And that place you're talking about is in Getty. If you're looking for the videos, I don't know how they're labeled or whatnot, but in Getty is, I'm sure where it was, but it's down by the Dead Sea, and it's kind of a narrow mm-hmm. little passageway, and everything that you see around the Dead Sea is dead. It's a desert. It's, and you walk through this narrow, and it opens up into it almost like you've jumped in the Star Trek teleporter and you've beamed yourself from a desert to a jungle. And there's, all this lush vegetation, and there's waterfalls, and there's a little stream. And in the middle of all of this dead, there's this oasis that's there. And the all around you is these. So when he talks about the Lord is my fortress, and he's my rock, and he's my protection, he's in those caves writing about that, looking at this and making that. And that's why I think, because he was brought so low, he can come back and praise God like he does in this. And he kind of, that idea of remembering him is one that he often did remember, the fact that I am, the old stories told about Alex Haley, who wrote the book Roots, had in his office behind his desk, had a picture of a turtle sitting up on a fence post. And there was a reporter that was doing an interview, and he saw that, and he said, "That's an interesting picture you've got back there." And he said, "Yeah." He said, "I keep that up there because it's a constant reminder that turtle didn't get up there by himself." And obviously the meaning was for him to keep that reminder that he didn't get where he got by himself. Mm-hmm. And there's certainly other people that, affect us and help us and whatnot, but it's the Lord, David understands. That's why he's giving him thanks for all of this, because he understands that it's God that did that, not him.
Yeah. To have that mindset is huge. We keep reading on here. For his anger is but for a moment, and his favor is for a lifetime. Weeping may tarry for a night, but joy comes with the morning. As for me, I said, in my prosperity I shall never be moved, but your favor, O Lord, you made my mountain stand strong. You hid your face. I was dismayed. To you, O Lord, I cry, and to the Lord I plead for mercy. What profit is there in my death if I go down to the pit? Will the dust praise you? Will it tell of your faithfulness? Hear, O Lord, and be merciful to me. O Lord, be my helper. Now, I don't read this and think about this being a guy who's at his rope's end. It's a guy who understands who God is to him in the low point in his life. And even though God is going to help, you still reach out for help. And that's a reliance. That's part of faith, relying on God when things are out of control. And there's something I believe is important, is that in life itself, you may not be able to control all the outside stuff, the outside noise, the outside problems, but you can control yourself. You can control what you think. You can control where you go. You can control what you say. You can control what you believe. And in those moments of craziness or moments of lowness, you can control where you go. And again, that's where David's going. O Lord, be my helper. Hear, O Lord, and be merciful to me. I think that's just such a huge, that's a huge thing for him.
And it's like in verse 5, he talks about, there was a time of anger. Mm-hmm. This is one of those good examples. If you take the Psalms literally, you're going to be confused. Mm-hmm. There's times where the righteous suffer and find joy, but the point is about kind of the idea. It's not that God was necessarily angry or whatever. It's the fact that the bad things with God turn into good things. Eventually, it may be in the ultimate sense, like in Revelation 4 and 5, there's the all of the singing, the victory and the joy of worshiping the Lord, all of the things that they had gone through in this life. It's really, none of it compares to eternal joy and whatnot. But again, he recognizes all of that comes from God. Because of that, verse 8, to you, O Lord, I cry, and to the Lord I plead. The ESV has it's begging. Well, who begs? Only an inferior to a superior, And he recognizes that. His favor, verse 5, is what he's begging for and pleading for, because he knows how much he needs him. Mm-hmm. And he's pleading for compassion and mercy. And then I love, we're talking about how honest that David can be with the Lord. What he says there in verse 9, it's almost like he's reasoning with God. Yeah. So what good is it if I die? Because if I die, I'm going to go down to the pit or the grave, and the dust can't praise you. The dust is not going to tell of your. I'm going to turn to dust, but it's not going to do you any good. You're better off having me here alive so that I can continue to worship you and tell others about you. And Job uses that same kind of reasoning in the book of Job. Yeah. In Psalm 6 and verse 5, he uses that same kind of reasoning. I just love how that's how comfortable he feels talking to God, that if I'm dead, it's not going to do you much good. But as long as I'm living, I'm going to praise you. I'll do you no good in the grave. And just can honestly, like I'm I'm trying to convince you to invite me to come over to your house and eat supper, or I'm trying to convince you to let me come down there and you take me deer hunting. Here's why you ought to do this, because I can, whatever for you. Mm-hmm. That's what he's doing for God. And again, it's the way that a friend talks to a friend, and I love that about David.
Well, yeah, and even in that, back in that verse 5, it seems that everything that he's discussing here is temporary. His anger is for a moment, and his favor is for a lifetime. Weeping may tarry for a night, but joy comes with the morning. So the temporary nature of all things in this life are a very real thing. So in my prosperity, because I understand that I shall never be moved, but your favor, O Lord, you made my mountain stand strong. He's the one who did that.
That's right.
This, oh Lord, be merciful to me. I love that you said, this is a friend talking to a friend. That's another thing that I think that there are a lot. I know that there are a lot of people that are almost. I'm trying to say that. I don't know how to say this. They're almost like, it's like they're confused about their relationship with God. I've done a Q&A this year, and I've done several. I'm sure you have too. And I've had a number of Q&A questions on prayer. And mm-hmm. one that has showed up a few different times is, am I bothering God if I pray to him all the time? Mm. Am I being, and I don't remember how all these were worded, but am I, almost, these are my words, not theirs, because I can't remember exactly how they worded it. But if I'm laying all of my, my problems on God, is he just going to see me as somebody who's just whining all the time? Am I bothering him with all my problems? Should I, almost like, really viewing that relationship like I might with you, right? Like should I call you every day and tell you everything that's going on in my life? Probably not. That could get to a point where I'm bothering you, or if you did that to me, it may get to that point because it's monotonous. It's, whatever. But with God, it's not that way. God is not the typical relationship. And I think that we really need to get a good grasp on that. We can't view that relationship in the same way that we view it with everybody else. It's different. It will always be different. There's nothing about that relationship that's the same. It's God, Spirit, Creator, and us, the creation. When the text says, when Peter says, cast all of your anxieties on him because he cares for you, that means that everything you got, you go to him. Well, David has developed this relationship with God that is abnormal. It's different. And that's how our relationship with God should be as faithful individuals. It has to be different. And so we really need to, keeping that untied idea, we've got to untie from the, whatever traditional way of prayer that you've ever heard and tie on to you talk to God in the way that you need to talk to God and give him everything all the time and speak to him like one friend speaks to another. That's what David, as you pointed out in a wonderful way, I think shows us that this is a real relationship. Mm-hmm. And that's what God is after, a real relationship with his follower. And I think this is a result of what we're seeing, being a real relationship as it is.
I don't know if you can hear me or not.
Yes.
Hopefully. Okay.
Yeah.
I hear you now. If you look at verse 11 and 12, which gets us back to the Thanksgiving side of things, again, the fact that he's done all this shows, this is a Thanksgiving psalm at the dedication of something in good times. I had all these bad things. I turned to you. It all worked out. That's not to say everything's going to work out in our lives, but when it does, give thanks to God. So in my Bible here, I've got verse 11, you've turned my mourning, and I've got my mourning circled, and I've got a line drawn up to verse 5 where it says weeping. And then into dancing, and I've got a circle around dancing and a line drawn back up to verse 5 to joy. So weeping tarries for the night, but joy comes from the morning. How do you know that, David? Because I've lived it. God has turned my mourning with a U, into dancing.
Yeah.
You've loosed my sackcloth, which is what they would wear in times of, they were trying to show that they were grieving or sad or whatever. And you've clothed me, instead of being clothed with sackcloth, now I'm clothed with gladness. We would think the opposite of sackcloth would be, something cotton and comfortable. You've loosed my sackcloth and put on sweatpants or something, but the opposite of being clothed in sackcloth is being clothed in gladness. So what am I going to do with all of that? I'm not going to walk away and say, look at what I did. My glory may sing your praise and not be silent. O Lord my God, I'll give thanks to you forever. Even, he talked about in verse 9 about death, and we've talked about before, like their understanding of the afterlife is very limited to some degree. But David says, even death isn't going to stop me now. Because of what you've done, I'm going to praise you and give you thanks for what you've done. My glory is going to praise you. So when people say, this is kind of that, let your good work, Jesus says in the Sermon on the Mount, let your good works be done before men so that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. When people say, look at what David did, he built this temple or he built this palace, I'm going to say, nope, that was all God. God did it. And I'm going to turn my glory into singing your praise. I'm going to turn my glory into giving thanks to you forever. Yeah. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Corey, I don't know. I'm just looking through here as you were going through that. Is there any connection? This is just kind of question time. You have kind of these same type of statements being made here. I'm looking to see if I see any more. So you have in verse 5 that his favor is for a lifetime. In verse 6, I shall never be moved. And then in verse 12, I will give thanks forever. It's almost like he's in this relationship. There's a continuous understanding, and I realize there's different things being said here, but there's a great deal of focus on the eternal aspect of that relationship.
Yeah, and I don't know that necessarily he's thinking forever. For the word that's translated forever there is the Hebrew word olam, which sometimes means forever. Sometimes it means just a long time. Whatever. Yeah. But certainly on this side of the cross and resurrection, we would understand more about that maybe than they would even. But maybe as he's writing, inspired by God, that is kind of the idea of it. But again, I just think it points to the fact that, when you really look, again, you go back to verse 5, the anger's for a moment, his favor's for a lifetime. Weeping tarries for the night, but joy comes in the morning. There's this focus on that, yes, you go through hard times, and yes, you go through bad times, but we can be thankful to God that in the grand scheme of things, it's really very short if you think about it, the bad things that we have to go through. There's always good that we can thank God for if we're looking for reasons to thank God. And but that begins with understanding my position in relationship to God, that he's the one that has allowed me to do this and blessed me. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. There's his perception's different. Being a thanksgiving psalm and even a praise psalm, the perspective of life as a result of the relationship is different. And, as people today, we get bogged down in our perception of life because of all the negativity that's around us. And sometimes we get this negative perception of the relationships, the things that we're able to do. And it really detours us from being able to live a joyful life like we should be living. But David's perception is very positive, or maybe I should say right focused, even when he's low or in a troublesome time. His perception is always on, things are great, God, thank you. Things are bad, God, thank you. Things are moving good. They're not good, they're not bad, they're kind of middle. God, thank you. And so that perception is I think very important for, of course, David, but that perception is really important for us because it's just too easy for us to get detoured off of that and start complaining and grumbling. And, the Jews should have been at a level whenever Jesus was here that they were just simply looking and at least consider the idea that Jesus was who he claimed to be. Mm-hmm. But they had allowed themselves to go off in a different direction where they were more considerate of their pride and power than humility, which is very opposite of David. And they looked at David as, he was it for them, but they had a different mindset. So,
yeah. Can you pull the Bible back up? And I'll make one more comment and then I'll hush. But if you turn over to 1 Samuel chapter 15.
Get over to the right screen here. You said 1 Samuel 15?
Yes, sir. And verse 12. And notice what it says. It says, Samuel rose up early the next morning to meet Saul, and when he got to Saul, or went to find Saul, he was told that Saul had gone to Carmel. He had gone to set up a monument for himself or to his own honor. In other words, that was Saul's attitude, is look at what I've done. And too often that's our attitude, is look at what I've done. And it's really important to realize, again, you may think I'm just bad-mouthing Saul when I keep making this negative comparison from Saul to David in the book of Psalms, but I think the text bears that out. This was Saul's attitude, was that when there's good times, look at what I've done. And I have defeated the Amalekites. I have, look at this great victory that I have. But when you're focused on yourself, it's hard to give thanks to God because you don't recognize that it was God that did it for you.
Yeah. So that 1 Samuel 15:12, and as of right now, I'm going to put 2 Samuel 5:19, which is what we read earlier. It's kind of a huge contrast because, like you said, Saul is, look at me, look at what I've done. I've set this monument up for myself. Then in 2 Samuel 5, the Philistines are there. He can go to war. Maybe he wins. I don't know. Maybe he wins whenever he goes down there. But he's not going down there without God.
Yeah. And I've built this palace or temple, whichever you think it is. Mm-hmm. I've built this. Don't think of this as a memorial to David.
Right.
This is the dedication psalm, because Saul built a memorial for himself. This is not a memorial for David. This is a memorial to God because he's the one that did this, not me.
Right. So probably I'll add that 1 Kings 8:63 onto that 2 Samuel 5:19 with that mindset. God, you're going to go with me? Yes. But then, of course, in the dedication of the temple, these are two different things that are going on, two different times. But then, he is wanting to build this and dedicate it to the Lord, for the Lord, which completely different mindset, just completely. That's right. So a man's man has a prideful, powerful, complex. God's man is humble and reliant on something greater, right. And he understands his place. And, throughout the judges and throughout the kings, for sure, But, in all of those, you have people who are kind of in this leadership role. Moses, we'll throw him in there, Joshua in there. The good ones understand their place amongst everybody. And that's one thing that is really driven home within the Judges and going into Samuel and on, is that, and Solomon discusses this in Proverbs, I think actually 3 different times. I need to look at those texts, but one of the things that he's trying to tell his son is, basically understand your place. You may be over the kingdom, you may be king, but you're under God. And to understand your place is really important. And again, like you pointed out, that's the mindset of David.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right.
So it's all good stuff, man. We could sit here, and I know you and I could sit here and talk for hours about this and go off in all kinds of directions, because some of the stuff you're talking about, I'm like, you know what? That's kind of like, Paul was saying, for me to live is Christ and to die is gain, but it's from a different perspective than kind of what David's talking about. So I think, in some way, both of them are seeing the importance of me being here, but the importance of not being here as well. So, kind of giving yourself to God's plan and not your own is a, big thing to think about. So, the depth of Scripture is outstanding. It is amazing, and it's just something for us to consider.
Yeah, so that's right. And it all begins with, like you said, understanding our place with the Lord. That's what the fear of the Lord is all about, is understanding He's God and I'm not.
Yeah, that's right.
And if I understand that, it's pretty easy for me to give thanks to Him.
Yeah, that's right. Well, Corey, it's been great to have this conversation with you and to talk about, Psalm 30 and everything that's going on in David's life and his perspective. And I hope that all of you who have joined in with us have considered these things and will consider these things in your own life. And maybe these will lead you to do more study on your own and to try to grow in the Lord and in your mindset like the good man that David was. So we're really thankful that you have decided to join us today, and we hope that all that we've talked about will bless you in many ways. And of course, as usual, we hope that you will continue to walk in your life with God in all times of your life, no matter how good, bad, or even or level it is. Always rely on the Lord because that's really, really important. So thank you for joining us and tuning in today, and we hope that you will be blessed in your daily walk, and we hope that you'll like, share, subscribe, and follow, and all that good stuff, the podcast, whatever way that you're seeing all of this or listening to this, and help us to grow this podcast as we continue on with providing this content for you. And we just hope our conversations will bless you each and every week. So this will come out on Thursday at noon. And of course, next week we will be looking at Psalm 34. So if you're wanting to be ahead of us, that's where we'll be next week. And so until next time, we pray that the Lord will bless you. We hope that you will stay untied.